if I'm idle for more than 15 minutes. For this purpose, I'm actually going to set this to 30, just because it gives me a little bit of a comfort as we're walking through these steps, so that if I talk too much, I don't lose the session that I'm working in. But you can keep it to 15, by the way. That's completely fine. Now let's go into some of the other settings that you can set. You see here that we can, for example, select Apache Spark version here. And you see here that we have the 2.4 version, and we also have the 3.0 preview version. I'm actually going to pick that one. And you might wonder, what's the difference? So the thing is that the Spark 3 runtime that we have in preview, it's a little bit newer. It has some new additional capabilities. Not necessarily that, we're going to leverage them as we walk through in this session, but just to kind of show you that we can run the same notebook that we're going to walk through later on the Spark 3 capabilities. But some of the benefits of this Spark 3 runtime is that it actually brings, for example, adaptive query execution. So it basically can change the query plan and optimize it as it gets more updated statistics from scans and shuffles, for example. So that's one of the benefits with this. And others are, for example, better Delta Lake support. For example, if you're using merge SQL commands, and also dynamic partitioning pruning are some other benefits. And although we may not use them for this particular session, you may want to explore those things later. So if you want to, you can select this, but either one works for this session. And you also see a little bit more details around what's the Python version, what's the Scala version, .NET, everything. So you get kind of an overview of the runtime and the versions that you're going to work with. And if you move down here, you also see a set of other settings that you can work with, right? And the thing with this is that you can actually configure your Spark pool from this view. And you can, for example, configure things like packages that you want to add to on pool level. So these are options for you to be able to say, hey, I actually want to make sure that every time a session starts on my pool, it has these additional libraries. Let's say if I'm working with PySpark, for example, it has these additional Python libraries that I can use. And for that, you can actually provide, for example, I'm not going to do that right here, but you can actually provide a requirements.txt file, for example, to be able to configure that session to add a few other libraries that you want on pool level, so to say. But one setting that I would recommend you to use, just because it makes it a lot easier as you're working with each notebook and you want to configure these things on session level, which means that it's kind of more customized to your own session, is that I would actually enable the packages on session level, and I can explain a little bit later why that's really good to have. So now that we have done this, let's click next, and I'm not going to add any specific tags here. I think I'm ready for review and create. So let's actually go and do that. Let's review these settings and go and create our Spark pool. So as we click create here, you're going to see this little pop-up up to the right, and it's actually starting the deployment of your Spark pool. So you should see that Spark pool with the name you just gave it right here. All right, so let's continue. While this Spark pool is kind of being provisioned for us and created, let's navigate back to the homepage of our workspace. And here you should see these ingest, explore, and analyze, visualize, and learn. And learn is a good place. I want you to remember this one because this is actually a really convenient source of information for you if you want to learn more. And here, one of the things I would recommend is to go to the Browse Gallery, because this is where you can find a bunch of different samples that you can work with to learn more about what you can do in your Synapse workspace, for example. And you see here that we have data sets, we have notebooks, we have SQL scripts, and we have pipelines. So as an example here, for example, if I come into my workspace and I just want to, get started and run some SQL queries on the built-in SQL that we have, so that I can kind of explore my data, let's say in the lake, using some